Welcome to BDubz DM21. I'm BDubz and this is a New World build concepts video. The build you are about to see is purely conceptual and theory crafted based on information gathered from the closed and open betas. These have not been tested and all skills, passives, and other details are subject to change as we head into launch. This build guide is purely to convey the concept of the extremely robust custom class system New World introduces, and to hopefully provide you some direction when you make the journey to Aeternum. Today, we build the Juggernaut, a DPS class designed for those sick individuals who discovered an unbreakable combo in fighting games that render any and all actions of their opponents useless. Built for both PvP and PvE, this build was originally conceptualized by Death Shadow. Guys, if there is one weapon that just simply does not get enough love or is incredibly misunderstood, it is, my friend, the Warhammer. Yep, that's right, and on this Juggernaut build, as I like to call it, we are indeed going to be having a lot of Warhammer fun. This build is meant for players who are wearing heavy armor, and the person who requested this build basically told me, dude, I want to CC. I want all the CC I can get. I don't care. I want to CC. And if I could do some damage on top of that, then I'll be happy with that. But I want CC. I asked him, do you care about gap closing? He goes, no. Because if they get to me, they ain't going nowhere. That's the kind of build that I want. I said, all right. So that's the kind of build I'm about to give you. This is meant for heavy armor, to give you that 20% increase in all of your crowd controlling debuffs and their durations. It makes this very strong, okay? Very strong in terms of keeping people zoned. Now, you might be surprised to hear me recommend that along with the Warhammer, we're also going to use the Spear. But there is a very, very good reason for this, because the Spear is a strong single target crowd control weapon. It can also be used against multiple enemies if they are all right next to you. So this also makes it a very strong controlling weapon that is capable of some pretty decent damage. So if you're looking to play crowd control and CC/DPS, then this build is for you. Let's begin with the hammer. For our rotation, we are going to open with Path of Destiny, which will give us a stagger. Then we're going to use Shockwave, which gives us a stun, and it also weakens all enemies hit by the Shockwave, and it has a 4-meter radius. Very, very nice. Immediately after the Shockwave, you're going to do a heavy attack, followed by a Mighty Gavel into a Justice for All. After that, while those abilities are on cooldown, your job with CC and zone control is not over yet. You then have 3 options to continue controlling the enemies whom you are currently juggling. The first option is a Vault Kick, very good for single target, and this will apply a 1.5 second stun. Very, very, very handy. Your next option, and these are optional, these are all situational. Your next option will be Sweep, and this will knock all of your enemies down, at which point you follow it up with a Coup de Grace, which is empowered by Merciless Strength, and we all had a good day. Next up, we have Cyclone. Now this is a spin attack and this doesn't often get pulled, but this person who I'm talking to telling me I want max CC. I want to be able to slow. I want to be able to stagger. I want to be able to trip. I want to be able to just lock people down forever and ever and ever, and they can never move again. Well, Cyclone is helpful with this, as it applies a 50% slow for 3 seconds. It's on a 12-second cooldown, so it can be used pretty frequently. We get 25 stamina back from that, and it's also grit capable, so that makes us fairly happy. So here we have a heavy armor user with several abilities that get grit, including heavy attacks with hardened steel. You are controlling the battlefield. You are the one who dictates the movement of the enemy. If they get to you and try to engage you, they just made the worst mistake of their life. Though they may not die super fast, they will certainly regret their decision for the next 12 to 15 seconds as you slowly, and yes, this won't be as damaging as other builds that we've made here, but as you slowly tick away their health bars, and not just theirs, but that also of their friends. Sound like a good build to you? Then the Juggernaut is the build that I would recommend to you CC hungry players. Yes. Let's get into each of the abilities in detail and talk about the passives, starting with the hammer. We're going to open our rotation with Path of Destiny. This is a powerful ground strike that erupts a linear wave of energy in front of the player, dealing 110% weapon damage to all targets in its path. 22-second cooldown, pretty dope. This will stagger all targets in its path once you get the Seismic Waves mod. Then, the Stimulated Reduction, the ability cooldown reduced by 5% for each enemy hit with Path of Destiny. This is an opener, so I could actually suggest that maybe you don't take this one. But, you know, sometimes fights go on for a little while longer. Sometimes the situation makes it easier to hit your Shockwave first, go into the heavy attack, and then into the Mighty Gavel, back away a touch Path of Destiny, and follow through with the Spear. Sometimes you might do things out of order depending on the situation, and that's fine, just so long as you have a good understanding of how your rotation works. This could work. But honestly, since it's situational, I do think it's helpful to get the reduced cooldowns. So yes, I do recommend the point. If you want to use this point somewhere else, be my guest. I'm not married to it. I could definitely see this point going somewhere else. Next up, we have Shockwave. This is a 4-meter AoE once upgraded. It deals 80% weapon damage per target and deals up to a 3-second stun, which, by the way, if you are wearing... I'm sorry, this is up to a 2-second stun. I got it confused with another ability, which, by the way, if you are wearing heavy armor, this is now a 2.4-second stun. It lasts for a good, healthy while. After you use Shockwave, you're going to use Heavy Attack. Now, something really cool about our Heavy Attacks. Our Heavy Attacks give us Empower, which increases our attack damage by 20%. Furthermore, we have Grit on our Heavy Attacks. Not that you really need it, because you already stunned your target, but we do get Grit with it. And this also gives us a 15% damage reduction while the Heavy Attack Grit is active. So this also gives us added stagger resistance, and it stops attacks from being interrupted. Really, really handy. Then we get on to Mighty Gavel. So we're doing the heavy attack onto Mighty Gavel. Mighty Gavel is a very fast attack. I have a lot of experience with the Warhammer. It's one of my favorite weapons in the game. And this Mighty Gavel comes out about twice as fast as a standard heavy attack. It is deceptively quick. It is deceptively quick. A lot of people don't know it's coming when it comes. It's not like Execute, where it's a huge wind-up with big damage. This is a very short wind-up with big damage. Is it the same amount of damage as a standard heavy attack? No, it's actually not. But it's super fast, and it's a very strong ability that then turns into a fourth ability for you, and that fourth ability is where your money-making DPS will come in. So, we do the Mighty Gavel, 160% weapon damage. Good, strong, healthy hit. On targets under 30% HP, which, hey, maybe after all this, in a PvP situation, or even a PvE situation, they will be under 30% health. So maybe now, you know, you probably could guarantee that extra 20%. Nice. Next up, increased stamina damage done by Mighty Gavel attack by 25%. Now, this is where some of the situational stuff comes into play. If you're engaged with somebody who is blocking, or you're engaged with somebody who has a shield and you know they're really tanky, you can actually break down that shield very easily with Impact Fracture from the Mighty Gavel. Very, very, very good here against tanks. Next up, Expedite. After a successful Mighty Gavel attack, you will gain haste, increasing players' movement speed by 30%. for 3 seconds. This is very helpful, very, very helpful, because you're normally in an armor class that doesn't get movement speed. I'll happily take a haste. This sounds great to me. The next one is your ultimate. It is called Justice for All. You press the basic attack during Mighty Gavel to add a second attack that deals 200% weapon damage. So now your Mighty Gavel is doing 360% weapon damage. Very few attacks, when down the rotation, will give you that much damage. And as somebody who's wearing heavy armor, you can take and use every single point of damage at your disposal. Please take it. It's actually quite good. Okay? It's very strong. And that wraps it up for our active abilities on the hammer. Let's take a look at the passives that we're taking. The first one we need to talk about is Epitome of Bonk. It increases armor penetration by 10% for all Warhammer standard attacks. As you could tell, this build is very strong against other users of heavy armor. Yeah. Next up, we're going to gain in power on a heavy attack. We talked about this one, but this is very big. This is a very big deal. Because we talk about staggering with the Path of Destiny and then stunning, and then I keep telling you, after the shockwave, do a heavy attack. The heavy attack takes quite a few seconds and normally is incredibly difficult to land in PvP, and can even be hard to land in PvE. So, since this build is meant for both, you can use this build both in PvP and PvE, right? You have this stun that lasts now for 2.4 seconds because you're wearing heavy armor. That gives you more than enough time to get that heavy attack off, giving you that 20% in power, which you will immediately use for your hardest hitting ability, Mighty Gavel, into Justice for All. Very good. You must heavy attack after the shockwave. You did the shockwave. Don't take that time to run or disengage or adjust or heal. Stop it. I've seen a lot of PvP video where people use shockwave to move around. It is the weirdest thing I have ever seen. Stop it. After the shockwave, you're going to follow up with an immediate heavy attack and then into your Mighty Gavel for your big DPS. And it feels good when this thing goes off. I actually had this. This was one of the abilities I actually tested, and it hurts a lot. So please use it. Yes, even in heavy armor, this thing hurts. Use it. Use your attacks of opportunities that you won. You earned your attack of opportunity with Shockwave. Use it. Heavy attack, empowered Mighty Gavel, Justice for All. This thing is awesome. Next up, on targets under 30% HP, you will increase damage done by heavy attacks by 15%. Interesting, because this seems to stack with our Summary Judgment. Ooh, so now our heavy attacks and our Mighty Gavel are getting more damage. They're getting more damage when the targets are under 30%. This really helps you finish. This really helps you finish. I don't know about y'all, but I really like to finish. Next up, Quick Recovery. Cooldowns are reduced 7% with heavy attacks. That's right. Heavy attacks are your friend in this build. Finally, exhaustive attacks. All Warhammer abilities apply exhaust, slowing targets' stamina regeneration by 15% for 5 seconds. Now, this does not stack. So once you apply it, the debuff has been applied and it will stick for 5 seconds. This is incredibly helpful when you are fighting those light armor users who want to dodge everywhere. You can take away their stamina regeneration. This is especially helpful though, and this is more particularly helpful for those tanks who want to block all of your attacks. If you can keep them from blocking and you can break down that stamina, they can no longer block you, and you deny them the ability to mitigate your damage or the damage from your friends. The hammer is very helpful for this purpose, and this is a very good passive for that purpose as well. Now, we had to take something here in the crowd crushing line. We have Outnumbered, which increases damage absorption by 10% if surrounded by 2 or more enemies within 3 meters, or reduce stamina consumption by 30% when blocking melee attacks. Now, since you're in heavy, you should be in a position where you have to block sometimes instead of dodging. It happens. However, I really don't think it's very advantageous for you in both PvE or PvP to be blocking for an extended period of time. I actually find that even your little plate armor dodge and weave, right? Just a little weave to the right, little weave to the left. It's actually a bit more stamina efficient in dodging damage than trying to block in some cases. In some cases. But what I find more useful is this. Because since you're a slow player with your heavy armor and your warhammer, it's pretty easy to get ganged up on. And if I can increase my damage absorption by 10% when 2 people are by me or 2 monsters are near me, this is actually a pretty good thing. I like it. It's very helpful in a pinch. And then of course we get our concussive impact, plus 15% damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuffs. Well, that's going to help empower our Mighty Gavel into the Justice for All because we applied a 10% weaken that lasts for 10 seconds. So this not only helps out our Mighty Gavel and Justice for All by giving it an additional 15% damage against them, but it will also help your heavy attack with an additional 15% damage. This overall is a very, very strong CC build that should you land these attacks, close the gaps, get the shockwaves, get your heavy attacks and go through the full rotation, you're going to do damage. And the people you're fighting are going to get hurt. And they are not going to like you very much. And we're going to have fun with this build. This build is very strong. I like it a lot. I think it's phenomenal. The only thing I might consider changing would be in the situation of siege. In which case, if we are sieging, I would replace Mighty Gavel with Clear Out, and I would do the same exact order. Path of Destiny, Shockwave, then Clear Out. Okay? And as far as adjusting the build to do that, I'll leave that up to you. Maybe we'll come up with a Wrecking Ball build later that will use the Clear Out. But the Clear Out's very helpful for knocking people off of points, which if you're a defender, or hey, maybe if you're an attacker, is very handy. If you can knock out a bunch of people off a point, maybe knock out the back line of healers or something and just get them off the point, keep them from healing, keep something from happening, well then Clear Out is your ticket to doing so. So I do recommend in a siege environment, perhaps replacing Mighty Gavel with Clear Out. But that might be a different build for a different day. Now let's go on to the Spear. Now we've already talked about Spear before in the past on the Patriot build. No, that wasn't the Patriot build. Have we talked about Spear yet? Yes, the Warden. We talked about the Spear already on a previous build, the Warden. But we're taking different skills, and the strategy behind this build is a bit different. Okay? Because this is more or less to help us in that single target situation. Now, I know that right now, the Javelin is a very popular choice in PvP. But here's the deal. Unless you've been hanging out in aim labs and really practicing aiming, and you're really good at aiming, at dodging targets, this skill is almost useless to you. If you miss, it does 0 damage and has 0 CC. In PvE, it's annoying to use. Should never be used in PvE. Just don't use it. Stop it. So frustrating when I'm with a player who has Javelin and they're throwing enemies across the room and I miss my skill shots. It's frustrating. So I know you guys think Javelin's great. Alright, and I've seen Javelin used to great effect. So if you prefer Javelin, you can run the same build, just replace Cyclone with Javelin. I'll leave that up to you, but at least now you know my reservations. Now, when we get over to the Spear, like I said, you can use these in any order you deem necessary. The ideal order, though, would be the Vault Kick, into the Sweep, into the Coup de Grace, into a Cyclone to keep them from running away. Switch back to the Hammer, heavy attack, heavy attack, heavy attack. That would more or less be what you are trying to do or accomplish with this build. Okay? Now, like the Hammer, this build will also heavily favor heavy attacks. And you tell we're going for heavy attacks. Heavy attacks. Your name is Juggernaut. That's the name of this class, Juggernaut, okay? Heavy attack. It's the only way, okay? We're not empowering our light combos that much at all, except for rare occasions. Yes, sometimes we will want the light attacks, okay? Sometimes we will want that. But most times, heavy attacks. So, let's start down with the abilities and we'll get into their passives. This is the Vault Kick. Deals 75% weapon damage and applies a 1.5 second stun. Very cool. Next, you gain in power after successful hits on targets below 50% health, increasing damage by 20% for 5 seconds. This should be an opener because it gives you an empower. So if you want to do this rotation in an ideal order, you would begin with the Vault Kick to get your empower. Now, you should have already opened with the hammer, so the chances of them being below 50% health is pretty darn good. You're probably going to get this empower really strong, okay? And then we talked about continuous motion already. That's optional. Swap it out for something else if you'd like. Next, sweep. This does 75% weapon damage and knocks a target down. This knockdown is going to be pretty long because you're in heavy armor. Nice. You're also going to have grit during this attack, so you can't be staggered out of it. Even nicer. Then you have coup de grace. Press basic attack during the sweep to follow up with a powerful downward stab that deals 125% weapon damage. Nice. Well, we already know we're getting 25% more damage against knockdown targets because we have merciless strength, so this is making this ability hit that much harder. Again, nice. So this is a very strong combo, and you would want to use this immediately after the Vault Kick, especially if you get the Relentless Blows perk to proc for you and you are empowered. If they're still alive, which at this point is fairly doubtful, you would then Cyclone to slow them down, enabling you to follow up with your heavy attacks. You get a bit of stamina every single time you hit with Cyclone, and it pushes the targets back to an optimal 3-meter range for your heavy attacks. This is also now protected by Grit, so you now have 3 moves protected by Grit. Hammer heavy attacks, the Sweep, and the Cyclone. Grit is good. Grit is strong. We want Grit. Very handy. Next up, let's take a look at our passives. Plus 10% damage on consecutive heavy attacks against a single target. If you're dealing in a world of lots of CC and you're stunning people, let's say you pull off the shockwave and you don't, and your mighty gavel isn't up, it's not available for whatever reason. Switch to spear and do 2 heavy attacks. You'll get plus 10% damage on consecutive heavy attacks. That's really good. That's a very nice, strong attack. It's going to be empowered as well with your 25% damage while stamina is full. So that's going to be really nice for you as a DPS to be able to pull from this perk if you have full stamina. So yeah, after your shockwave, switch to your spear and just go ham with heavy attacks if you can. And then when they're out of their stun them again with the Vault Kick, sweep, coup de grace, Cyclone, heavy attack again. Awesome stuff. Remember that your optimal range with your heavy attacks will be about 3-meter reach. Now, your spear has about I think it's just shortly less than 5 meters. So if your target is about 3 to 5 meters roughly away, you should hit, okay? Based on what testing I was able to do. But again, that was of course in the testing phases, so that could have changed. But that's about the reach of your spear, about roughly 5 meters. So you get 2 meters a sweet spot here. Definitely try to get and utilize deadly reach procs as best as you can. I'm pretty sure that also helps your Vault Kick because this is a bit of a long distance hit. It's a bit of a gap closer, so it should help that as well. Next up is defensive stance. You will gain fortify after successful heavy attacks, increasing damage absorption by 15%. This is another reason why we do heavy attacks. Very nice. Then we're going to restore 20% stamina on critical hits. When and where you can, attack the back. In PvE, attack the back all the time. You should always be attacking the back. Though in PvE, if you're doing heavy attacks against a target, you should be using your hammer for that. Instead of the spear, you'll get more damage, I promise. Alright, next up, we talked about reserve strength, 25% damage while stamina is full. Your stamina gets reserved quite a bit, gets restored quite a bit, and since you're a DPS and not a tank, in PvE, you should always be landing those critical hits, which pretty much means you should always be at full health. So you should always have that 25% stamina damage increase with your spear. Really nice. Alright? In PvP, this might not proc so much, but honestly, if you're coming after somebody who you CC'd over and over and over again, and then you switch to your spear, and you just stun them again, sweep them coup de grace again, and then you cyclone them, you're going to have this buff the entire rotation. You're just going to get a flat 25% damage increase for the entire duration. It's a really good perk, and it happens all the time. Really strong. Yeah, that's a really strong perk. We did increase our light attacks because the other alternative was all spear cooldowns are reduced by 10% on the second hit of the light attack chain. Well, since we're using heavy attacks to bring down our spear cooldowns by 15%, I felt this was redundant, and then it confuses the player based on whether they should be using heavy attacks or light attacks. Considering how much stunning you're doing, it seems to me you should be able to land your heavy attacks, and that'll reduce your cooldowns. But if you need to get those precise jabs in, if you just gotta use light attacks, because sometimes it's necessary, especially in PvP situations, to get those fast attacks out there. If you have to do it, you're at least gonna get 5% crit chance on it. So nice. And then we're going to do plus 15% damage against targets of less than 30% health, which is a familiar theme from our Warhammer. As you can imagine, stacking the gems that increase your damage on targets below 30% health would stack very nicely for these weapons, giving you that extra damage perk that you really, really want, especially in those PvP situations when you're dealing with people who are in light armor and you really want to match them pace for pace, hit for hit in damage. So this would be very nice to have. And then, of course, aggressive maneuvers. The first successful hit with an ability within 2 seconds of dodging reduces all spear cooldowns by 20%. That's a thick cooldown reduction. So basically, the first successful hit with an ability within 2 seconds of dodging. So basically, do an ability dodge, do an ability dodge. But I'm in heavy armor. Who cares, dodge? I heard someone say the other day that dodging in heavy armor is useless. I think they forgot about roll perks and weapon perks when they said that. But dodging in heavy armor is actually quite helpful, and you should do it. The cool thing about dodging in heavy armor, though, is that sometimes you want the damage bonuses or the cooldown reductions without putting space between you and the enemy. When you're in heavy armor, since you don't move that far, you get the bonus of the benefit from your passives, but you don't lose position on the enemy. And that's actually a really good thing. So, no, seriously, dodge in heavy armor is good. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They're being silly. Okay? And there you have it, guys. That is the Juggernaut build. What do you guys think? Tell me in the description, in the comments down below, whatever it is. If you guys want to join us for our streams over on twitch.tv/BDubzDM21, you can do so on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We stream more often than that, but those are my guaranteed stream times, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be streaming a lot more as New World is released. Furthermore, if you want to see more builds, you can check out the playlist on the end card of this video or in the description down below. It's dope. It's awesome. And finally, there's a brand new channel. I just started this thing. Can you help me out here and hit subscribe or something? It would make me feel valued, and I would appreciate that very much. Thank you kindly for your considerations. In any case, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Stay safe out there. Keep the faith, and game on. I'll see you next time.